On the day I came of age, it was snowing heavily, and he said he wanted to call off the engagement. When I heard the news, I was sitting in the warm pavilion drinking milk that Xiao Qin had warmed for me. The steam was rising, and I felt so comfortable that my eyes closed slightly. Yes, I am Qin Ziji, the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister's family. I discovered yesterday that I had been reborn. Currently, the Emperor is nearly 50 years old. His health is neither good nor bad, and he has not yet designated a crown prince. The princes have grown up and started secretly courting ministers, who have also begun to form factions behind the scenes. Originally, the Prime Minister's mansion remained untainted by the mud, standing firmly by the Emperor's side. The Emperor and my father had known each other since their youth, and their relationship was close. As a result, I was granted the title of Princess of Anning County at birth, along with a small fiefdom. This was something even ordinary noblewomen dared not dream of. Alas, in my previous life, I was blinded by the third prince's handsome appearance and insisted on marrying him. I completely ignored the fact that my father had not taken sides and that I was no match for the cunning third prince. In the end, I was forced into marriage. I assumed I would be favored, but instead, I grew jealous of Su Xin'er and committed a series of misdeeds. In the end, I betrayed my country for personal gain, nearly causing a major disaster and ultimately bringing ruin upon the Prime Minister's mansion. When I saw my father, who had always loved me, kneeling on the execution platform in ragged clothes, being pelted with rotten vegetables by the ignorant crowd, I lost my mind. I rushed forward to grab the knife, but accidentally pulled it out and stabbed myself instead. When I woke up, I was back at age 14. At this time, the third Prince Xian was requesting to call off the engagement with the Emperor. The original me, of course, refused. I cried, caused a scene, and even attempted suicide. With no other option, my father, who doted on his daughter, had to go before the Emperor and mimic my actions. The Emperor was in a quandary and told the third prince to go back and prepare for the wedding. But now, Tuan, your father said that the third prince is not a good match for you. Look, let's not get married, okay? The Prime Minister heard the news and rushed to his daughter's room. He was nearly 40 years old and looked very refined, exuding the charm of a mature man. That is, if he didn't smile obsequiously. Yesterday, for some reason, the daughter woke up and clung to him, crying bitterly, looking as though she had suffered a great injustice. It broke his heart. Don't let his stern demeanor fool you, he was strict and demanding. But when it came to his daughter, he treated her like a precious treasure, afraid to let her out of his sight. Plus, his wife had passed away early, so he had to be both father and mother to her. He was practically ready to put her on a pedestal. When had he ever seen her cry like this before? Just thinking about her crying like that again made him feel terrible. He asked cautiously. I felt a pang of sadness and put down the warm milk I was holding. Dad, you're smiling like a stranger from the street. It's kind of scary. Qin the Chancellor's face fell, not because his daughter had spoken to him, but because she still had the heart to joke with him. After all, based on his understanding of his daughter, she should have rushed over frantically shaking his arm with a sorrowful expression on her face. This must be too much for her. Tuan Chuan, did you hear what your father said? I nodded and smiled. I heard. The third prince wants to call off the engagement. So let him. Qin Zaixiang froze, then touched his daughter's forehead and checked his own, muttering, "You're not feverish." Seeing my father like this, I thought of his appearance on the execution ground. My mouth tightened, and I suppressed the sadness in my heart and said, I suddenly think the third prince is actually quite ugly. Let him break off the engagement. Qin the Chancellor, what? The third prince is the most handsome man in the Great Yan dynasty? In an elegant room, a man dressed in a blue robe embroidered with silver lotus flowers sat upright at a desk practicing calligraphy. His handwriting was neat and proper, yet it carried an air of unconventionality, penetrating deeply into the wood. A golden dragon incense burner emitted a faint purple smoke, filling the room with a sense of peace. "Your Highness, Miss Chin has agreed to call off the engagement." Upon hearing this, the man retracted his brush, and the character was complete. A masterpiece. His eyes were narrow and slanted, his nose high and straight, and his lips thin, giving him a look of both passion and coldness. Yet his demeanor remained dignified. This contradiction made him even more captivating. "This is odd." The man spoke, then stopped writing, finished the large character, and looked up at the man below him, saying indifferently, "What?" So it was Qin Zijing who came to her own decision? What did she say? The third prince was a bit surprised. Qin Zijing had been clinging to him since their first meeting, for 5 whole years, and he had developed a bit of a shadow over her. Now she was suddenly letting go, which was completely unexpected. The secret guard hesitated before saying, "Miss Qin said." "She said your highness is ugly." He had removed the word handsome. The third prince, Qin Zijing, the legitimate daughter of the prime minister's mansion, had actively broken off her engagement with the third prince Yan, shocking the elite circles of the great Yan dynasty. Qin Zijing had successfully transformed into a cautionary tale for the noblewomen. Opposites attract. Curiosity is curiosity. In an instant, invitations to view flowers and attend banquets flooded into the prime minister's mansion like a tidal wave. I lay sprawled on a soft couch, eating ice cream by the fire. I had originally intended to reject all the invitations, but then the princess who was to be my future wife sent me an invitation. It was obvious that these people were bored and wanted to see me make a fool of myself. But there was nothing I could do. I had to save face for my future sister-in-law. Oh, my head! The date is tomorrow. I was feeling so comfortable today and didn't want to go out. But my new clothes were missing some jewelry. Sigh. After half an hour, Xiao Qin and Xiao Shu finally dragged me off the soft couch and helped me change clothes and get ready. I wore a red flowing dress with delicate plum blossoms embroidered in gold thread, topped with a pure red cloak adorned with a circle of white fox fur. Warm and beautiful. I styled my hair in a simple single ponytail, adorned with a pomegranate hairpin, and delicate red rubies hung by my face, making my face appear smaller. I nodded in satisfaction at the mirror and set off with Xiao Qin and Xiao Hua. In my previous life, Xian always loved strolling through the streets with Su Xian'er. I found it dirty and chaotic, refused to go, and felt jealous, so I never truly enjoyed it. This time, I decided to head to Baozanju and take my time admiring the streets. But lo and behold, as soon as I stepped out, I encountered a reckless young man at the street corner teasing a pitiful young woman selling herself to bury her father. "Hey there, this little beauty. Come here. Let me take a look. Sir, please refrain from touching her." Though the girl's voice was firm, it was soft and delicate, with a hint of hoarseness, sounding like a feather brushing against the heart, making the listener even more captivated. It made my scalp tingle. My goodness, isn't that Su Xian'er? What is she doing here burying her father? I recognize the man. He's Chang Fan, the direct descendant of the Dingyuan marquis. He's a playboy with a reckless demeanor. But deep down, he's a fool. I heard he especially likes collecting beautiful things. Could he have set his sights on Su Xian'er and wants to collect her? Look. Look. He's already laid a hand on her. He couldn't wait any longer and was pulling on Su Xian'er's arm, shouting, "You're selling yourself to bury your father, aren't you? I'll buy you, give you money, and take you home with me. I'll dress you up beautifully every day." I looked at Su Xian'er. She was struggling, her lips almost bitten through, looking like she was about to cry. Her little face was pale, and her big doe eyes were filled with tears, melting my heart. She's actually quite pretty. Pfft. I don't think she's pretty at all. I just feel like I must have been brainwashed in my previous life to keep harming her. I feel pretty guilty about it. That's right. That's exactly how I feel. Humph. Thinking this, I walked over and kicked Sun Chongfan aside. He had been my father's apprentice for 2 years, so I wasn't afraid of him. I shouted, "You're just as twisted as he is. No girl in her right mind would ever want to go with you." Sun Chongfan was kicked and looked dazed, about to get angry. But then he turned around and saw a cute little girl. She took a step forward, then immediately backed up 2 steps as if facing an enemy. "Why are you always here? Qin Zijing? Spit! All you do is tattle." I narrowed my eyes. He probably remembered how he had bullied me before, and my father had brought me to his house to complain, resulting in him being beaten so badly he couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. He fled with his servants. As he left, he threw back, "You'll get what's coming to you," and disappeared. Humph, trash. Su Xian'er looked at Sun Chongfan fleeing in disarray, then at me, hesitated with the silver in his hand, and immediately knelt down. "Thank you, miss, for redeeming Xian'er. From now on, Xian'er is your servant." I was startled. That silver wasn't from me? Su Xian'er looked serious and said, "The bad man gave the silver, and you drove him away. So it counts as you giving it to me. Is that even possible? I, the daughter of the Prime Minister's mansion, the Princess of Anning County, reborn just 2 days ago, and now my former rival in love has become my free maid. I have to report for duty tomorrow." I was so flustered by her smooth talk that I couldn't refuse, and could only stand there, watching her departing figure, lost in thought. In my previous life, Su Xian'er was clearly the daughter of the Minister of Revenue. How did she end up selling herself to bury her father? Did I reincarnate into the wrong life? Or did she meet the third prince when she sold herself to bury her father? In my previous life, I was happily embroidering a veil at home at this time and didn't come out. Does that mean the third prince is nearby? I looked around, but there was no one. Then I turned around and looked up. On the 2nd floor of the tavern, the third prince was drinking wine, his slender eyes gazing at me indifferently. Ugh. Damn it. Karma is so fast. It's okay. It's too far away. He definitely can't see me. Or maybe he wasn't looking at me. I immediately covered my face and ran away without looking back. Xiao Qin and Xiao Hua chased after me, completely confused, shouting as they ran, "Miss!" The whole street heard that. Ah, this is so bad. I snatched his beloved right in front of his former fiancée and turned his beloved into my maid. What should I do? I'm in a hurry. I'm waiting online. Why did I even go out? Ah. The third prince watched the fleeing figure, the corners of his mouth curving upward. This panicked little expression is cuter than pretending to be a proper lady. I ran out of breath to Baozanju and looked back. Good. He didn't follow. But thinking about it, how could the third Prince Xian possibly chase after me? Thinking of this, I was so embarrassed I wanted to cry. Where did I get the confidence to be so stupid and mean in my previous life? Thinking about how I poisoned him and used those underhanded tricks, I probably would have been discovered long ago. Thinking about it now, before I betrayed the country, Xian seemed pretty kind to me. Sigh. Never mind. I'll just stay far away from him for the rest of my life. Baozanju was the largest jewelry store in Yanjing, backed by the largest imperial merchant of Beiyang. The items inside were exquisite and valuable. Even the cheapest ring there would be a prestigious dowry for an ordinary family. Therefore, it was highly favored by imperial relatives, nobles, and the daughters of officials. Xiao Qin and Xiao Hua accompanied me as we strolled aimlessly to the third floor. Fortunately, it was cold, so there weren't many people around. Otherwise, encountering acquaintances would have been quite troublesome. Oh my, isn't that the Princess of Anning? This is inconvenient. My body stiffened as I looked up at the fourth floor. A woman in a peach-colored qipao was descending the stairs step by step. The limited edition luxurious golden phoenix cat's eye gem hairpin on her head shone with a blinding light. A maid was supporting her on either side, careful not to touch the bracelets on her wrists or the long gemstone finger guards on her fingers. Princess Lin Qin. Damn it! I bowed and forced a smile. She glanced at me from head to toe and laughed. So you really did break off the engagement? You've gotten pretty bold, haven't you? I replied seriously. I've come to my senses. Forced relationships never last. Princess Lin Qin looked at the young girl standing half a head shorter than her, with her delicate, pink features, and smiled. What are you trying to be so proper for? She glanced at me behind me and continued. If the third prince isn't sweet, then who else in the entire northern Yen kingdom could be sweeter? I didn't notice the change in her tone and thought for a moment before saying. I suddenly realized that my older brother is better. He looks too delicate and frail, like he's not in good health. I spoke nonsense with a serious expression, ignoring the brutal fact that Xian had defeated his own older brother at the age of 13. The princess of the imperial family burst into laughter, her tears nearly spilling over, shattering the worldly beauty filter she had been wearing moments ago. I looked at her with disgust and took 2 steps back, saying, "Watch your image. If someone comes over and thinks you're having a fit, I won't help you." Xiao Qin poked me, but I ignored her and shook my arms. The princess laughed even harder, unable to stop herself. The maidservant beside her quickly helped her back up to the 4th floor. She was still laughing hysterically as she went up. I was so angry. Damn it. This idiot is going to be my sister-in-law? Does she even want me to live? I'm not feeling well. Huh? A familiar male voice sounded from behind me, pleasant but tinged with an unfamiliar threat. My legs went weak, and I almost knelt down. All right. The idiot is actually me. Looking at the long staircase leading to the 4th floor, I swallowed hard. That's not a staircase, it's an escape route. I bolted, but as soon as I took a step, my neck was grabbed, and I was flipped around to face those narrow eyes. Humph. Haha. What a coincidence. Third prince. Right now. I hate my short stature so much. Looking at the man who was a head taller than me, I felt like crying. Sniff, sniff, sniff. First you steal someone's woman, then you spread rumors behind their back and get caught. I suddenly don't want to be reborn anymore. Death is better than dying in embarrassment. You broke off our engagement and spread rumors about me? You want me to never marry? The man in front of me spoke in the gentlest tone, saying words that scared me into a quail. I tried to argue that he must have heard wrong, but then I thought, no, that's not right. You were the one who wanted to call off the engagement, not me. Xian looked at the delicate, pink face with a hint of baby fat in front of him. Those big round eyes glared at him angrily, sparkling like a puppy recently brought from Myanmar, and the pink lips were pouting in displeasure. He knew the little person in front of him was furious, so he smiled even more gently and said, "But the emperor said it was you who broke off the engagement." All right. This was my father who asked the emperor to say that to protect my reputation, even though I've already lost all my reputation. Thinking this, I released his hand from the back of my neck and said, regardless of who backed down, it's already decided. Please show some respect, Your Highness. From now on, men marry women, and everyone lives happily ever after. Xian's eyes darkened, though he was still smiling. Based on my nearly 5 years of experience with him. He was angry. But why? This is so strange. Thinking this, I lost my mood for picking out a hairpin and just grabbed one that caught my eye. Paid. And left. Feelings of resentment, unwillingness, sadness, and anger swirled wildly in my heart. This is truly bizarre. He's the one who doesn't want me. He's the one who doesn't like me. Yet he acts as if he's interested in me. It's disgusting. I stormed back home, thinking about how annoying it would be to be questioned by the other young ladies at the prince's mansion tomorrow. All I could think about was Xian's face. Why was he angry? I'm the one who's angry. From the first time I saw him at 9 years old to when I married him at 15. And even in my previous life when I died in the 4th year of our marriage. He was always gentle and smiling but never took the initiative. It made me think I had a chance. So I didn't care about my reputation and clung to him desperately. And he didn't reject me. Even when the emperor arranged the marriage. He didn't object. But then he reneged on his promise when I came of age. What kind of behavior is that? You despicable man. You married Su Xin'er after only half a year of marriage. You knew I did bad things for him. Yet you didn't stop me or tell me. Could it be that you deliberately had someone contact me about the treason? Just to make me step aside. I thought about everything from my previous life. Imagining Xian as the worst person possible. As I thought, I cried myself to sleep. The curtains moved slightly, and a figure entered the room. He stared at the delicate woman on the bed, looked at the tears on the pillow, and gently touched her slightly swollen eyes. He muttered, "How stupid. So stupid and blind." Huh? When I woke up, I thought my eyes would be swollen like walnuts. But miraculously, they weren't at all perfect. Xiao Qin helped me style my hair into a delicate flying fairy bun, which looked graceful and charming. Very suited to me. Xiaohua helped me pick out my outfit. Today I'm wearing a plum-colored dress with a train trailing on the ground, paired with plum blossom makeup, making me look gentle yet slightly alluring. I pinned in the new hairpin I bought yesterday. Strange. This hairpin doesn't seem like the one I bought yesterday. What's wrong, miss? Xiaohua asked curiously. I looked at the hairpin. It had a phoenix-tailed butterfly on it, lifelike with wings that seemed to flutter slightly, as if it were about to fly away at any moment. The tail was adorned with tiny multicolored gems, resembling a butterfly trailing a long trail of light. It's so exquisite. Is this the butterfly hairpin I bought yesterday? Only 50 taels? This looks worth at least 500 taels. What a bargain! It seems that misfortune may turn out to be a blessing after all. In a cheerful mood, I sat in the carriage, squinting my eyes as I ate pastries. Although I had already decided to give up on Xian, I was now even more certain. My family is simple. My brother spoils me. My father indulges me. And I was raised in luxury. The housekeeper isn't a problem. But I'll pass on the scheming and love triangles. What happened in my previous life? I don't care what he thinks anymore. This life, I'll just be myself. Find a husband who loves me. And return home often to see my father. I just want to live a peaceful life. Hey, is Qin Zijing coming today? I don't know. Probably not, after all that shameless clinging. She was rejected in the end. Wasn't it her who wanted to call it off? No. It was the third prince who suggested it. The emperor just spared the chancellor's face. So, at the banquet, the women were chatting about the hottest topics of the day. And unfortunately, most of them were talking about me with malicious glee. After all, the third prince was a dragon among men, with a good chance of ascending the throne and becoming the supreme ruler. Countless noblewomen were infatuated with him. Unfortunately, he had always been monopolized by Qin Zijing, leaving others no chance to approach him. Now that she was out of the picture, They could finally try to get close to him. I stood outside the door, listening to the conversation inside, lowering my eyes. Xiao Shu looked at me with concern. Sigh, fame brings trouble. As I walked in, the servant announced loudly, "The daughter of the Prime Minister's family has arrived." The hall fell silent for a moment. As I entered, everyone turned to stare at me. I smiled gracefully, walked to my seat, and observed proper etiquette. The princess of the imperial family sat in the seat of honor, her seductive eyes glancing at me with schadenfreude. I stuck my tongue out at her secretly. The second daughter of the Minister of War immediately leaned over and said, "You broke off the engagement." I nodded and said, "Yes." "So what?" She looked at me in astonishment, then retreated and fell silent. Probably because she was rejected by the third prince. After all, begging isn't a good deal. A voice filled with malice rang out, followed by a burst of giggles. I looked over and saw that it was Zhou Yao, the eldest daughter of the Minister of Revenue. Zhou Yao was known as the most talented woman in Yanjing, arrogant and proud. We had been rivals. But after I started liking Xian, I stopped bothering to compete with her for the title of most talented woman. Who knew she would spread rumors behind my back, saying I was clingy, persistent, and embarrassing, and that Xian hated me. Although I was clingy, but he didn't hate me that much. Okay. My reputation is ruined, and she played a big part in it. Ugh. But before, I always thought Xian might not like headstrong women, so I acted more docile and obedient in public. But now, there's no need for that anymore. So I mocked her, saying, "Yeah, begging isn't a good deal. You were so clever to secretly send a perfume pouch to the fifth prince on the Qixi festival." Her face flushed red, not expecting me to know about that. She stood up angrily and said, "Qin Zijing, you have no shame yourself. Yet you slander others. When did I ever send a perfume pouch to the fifth prince?" I ate the plum blossom cake, looking at her coldly, too lazy to bother with her. The noble women around her, who had once been close to her, now looked at her with disdain and began whispering among themselves. This friendship is so fragile. Cough. Cough. Come on. We're all sisters. Look at how beautifully the red plum blossoms are blooming. Let's admire the flowers. The princess of the imperial family, who had watched the drama unfold, stepped in to smooth things over. The other noble women present were all shrewd women, and soon someone went to persuade Zhou Yao not to be angry. She glared at me and sat back down in her seat. I looked at the red plum blossoms in front of me and felt exhausted. As expected, I didn't like this atmosphere. Seeing my distracted expression, the princess of the imperial family secretly pulled me into her room and asked, "What's wrong?" Since it was just the two of us, I didn't need to be formal. I slumped in the chair and said, "It's boring." She frowned and said, "Boring? You used to love these gatherings the most." I thought for a moment and said, "Maybe it's because I've come of age and matured. Princess Lin Qin, you're getting more and more eccentric. But that's fine. I told you before that Xian doesn't like you. So stop thinking about him all the time." I listened to her words and nodded. She fell silent for a moment before continuing. "I've recently taken in a few young girls who can perform magic tricks. Want one to play with?" I looked up at her radiant smile and nodded. She gave a command, and a young girl entered. She had a round face, looking both cute and lively. In my previous life, on the day of my wedding, the princess of the imperial family also gave her to me, and she later became my most trusted maid. I wonder what happened to her after I died. Watching the orange in her hand disappear and reappear, then end up in my pocket. I smiled. The princess laughed. "See, my little boat is pretty amazing, isn't it?" I nodded and said, yes. It's quite impressive. Let's call her Xiao Zhou. The princess sighed. You're really fixated on the Xiao character, aren't you? Back at the banquet, I continued to maintain my half-out-of-body state. The princess didn't bother looking at my gloomy expression and told me to leave. I immediately snapped back to reality and hurried away. Socializing is so tiring. Sitting in the carriage, watching Xiao Zhou perform magic tricks, I couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of fate. The maid I received at my wedding in my previous life had been reincarnated and was now with me again. I sipped my hot tea and nibbled on pastries, feeling a bit restless. How could I free myself from the memories of my past life? These past 3 days felt like a dream. After swaying for half an hour, we finally arrived at the Prime Minister's mansion. I stretched lazily and heard Xiao Qin's voice from outside the carriage. Hey! You're the girl who sold herself to bury her father yesterday. Slap. The pastry in my hand fell to the ground and suddenly didn't smell good anymore. I slapped my forehead. Oh my god. I forgot about her. I lifted the curtain and saw Su Shinner dressed in white. Her expression firm, looking at me without a trace of humility or arrogance. Miss. Me? Ah. This isn't just a dream, it's a nightmare. Su Shinner was hardworking, beautiful, and graceful. Even in her simple clothes, her exquisite features couldn't hide her striking beauty, making her look delicate and charming. A small red tear tattoo under her eye added a touch of allure to her innocence. If she changed her clothes, she could easily pass as a lady. In my previous life, I didn't interact much with her, except for betraying her. The thing I envied most was her face. I wanted to destroy it at all costs. But now, seeing her bustling around me, I can't help but feel a bit envious. She's quite a sight to behold. Over the past 3 months, I've stayed cooped up in the mansion, refusing all invitations. I promoted Su Shinner to first-class maid and kept her by my side every day. There's really nothing to it. I just wanted to see where I went wrong. Turns out I was pretty off the mark. She may be beautiful and was promoted from a third-class maid to a first-class one by me. But she hasn't shown a single trace of spoiled behavior. She works diligently every day, completes her tasks, gets along well with everyone, and doesn't cause me any trouble at all. Seeing that she seemed to love reading, I gave her a few rare books I had read. She was so moved that tears almost came to her eyes. She's just too innocent. Why did I think she was so cunning and scheming in my previous life? But Xiao Zhou is different from how I remember her. I remember her as loyal and obedient, always giving me advice and considering my feelings. But in this life, I've noticed that she acts a bit. How should I put it? She went to pick bird eggs, and the mother bird protected her chicks. Pecking her hand, she actually threw the nest off the tree and was about to stomp on the mother bird. I stopped her, but the mother bird was still injured and couldn't fly for a while. Afterward, she tearfully apologized to me, saying she was just angry in the moment and had planned to use the eggs for a magic trick. I forgave her, but something felt off. Reflecting on past events, a vague thought began to form in my mind. Father, could the Minister of Revenue have left behind a daughter or something? The political situation at court has been tense lately, with the 5th prince and 2nd prince constantly bickering. The 4th prince is aligned with the 2nd prince and joins in the arguments, which is quite annoying. The eldest prince is just trying to smooth things over, acting like he doesn't want to get involved. The 3rd prince doesn't say anything, but the 5th and 2nd princes won't let him off the hook. They end up in a heated argument, making the 5th prince so angry he wants to curse. And the 2nd prince doesn't come out looking good either. Left speechless. The emperor's expression was somber, and he said nothing. The ministers trembled in fear, but Chancellor Chen knew that the emperor was just watching the show. It's so ridiculous. He doesn't even bother to manage his own sons? He's just watching the show, claiming it's to experience the feelings of the previous emperor during the succession struggle. It's utterly absurd. The Xie family is so skilled at unifying and governing the country. Yet their way of thinking is so bizarre. Of course. Today finally came to an end, and the emperor dismissed court with a lingering sense of satisfaction. Chen, the prime minister, hurried back to his mansion to have dinner with Chen Zijing, moved to tears. He hadn't had dinner with his beloved daughter for 3 days. It was torture. But who knew that the first thing she asked was about the Ministry of Revenue? Wasn't she on bad terms with the eldest daughter of the Ministry of Revenue? But then again, he thought for a moment and said, the eldest daughter of the first wife has been missing for a long time. She disappeared 10 years ago. And we still haven't found her. What's the matter? I took a sip of soup and said, I'm just curious. Does she have any birthmarks or anything like that? Chen the Chancellor nodded and said, yes. She has a small red mole on her face. But it's been so long. I doubt anyone remembers. After saying that, he took a sip of soup and heard Chen Zijing say softly, I think I found her. Cough cough cough. Chen Zixiang was startled by his daughter's words and choked on his soup. He saw her beckon, and a woman in a white long dress walked over. She had a pure and delicate appearance, with a small red tear-shaped mole under her eye. Chen Zixiang thought it was absurd. 3 months after Chen Zijie disappeared, she resurfaced. She had actually found the long-lost younger daughter of the Ministry of Revenue, whose original name was Zhou Yunqing. However, her mother later changed her name to Zhou Xianer out of concern for her daughter. As a result, Sun Changfan, that fool, suddenly realized that he had found her first and that I had taken her away from him. He started coming to the Prime Minister's mansion every day to pick a fight with me. I suit vibrant colors, and my dresses are almost always bright hues. Now that it's winter, I wore a red dress again and pinned my butterfly hairpin from my treasured hairpin collection. Watching him sit idly in the hall drinking tea, I couldn't help but marvel at how great it was to inherit a title. You didn't have to do anything. Only he could have the nerve to come to my mansion for a day during this sensitive period of succession, using the pretext of seeking knowledge from my father to waste my time. Sure enough, the moment he saw me, he jumped up again. You say it. It's all your fault. Look, if I had brought her back to the mansion, I would have had the legitimate daughter of the Ministry of Revenue as my wife. I lazily glanced at him and slumped in my chair, saying, enough already. Which family in Yanjing would want to marry you? You're good at eating, drinking, gambling, and womanizing, but you're good for nothing. You're just dreaming, he retorted confidently. Pfft. I don't gamble. My head ached, and I snapped. Who cares about you? If you're sick, go ask the Ministry of Revenue for a marriage proposal. Stop bothering me every day. I stood up to leave, but my legs were numb from sitting in an awkward position, and I almost knelt on the ground. Just as I thought my knees were going to suffer, I was caught in an embrace. The man held my arm, frowned at me, his peach-shaped eyes sparkling with desire. His lips pressed together, and a small dimple appeared on his cheek. We were too close, and I could smell a faint scent of fresh grass on his body, mixed with the orange scent I loved, and a hint of warmth. The place where he held me felt slightly warm. I have to admit, Sun Changfan's looks are still pretty deceiving. He's quite handsome. He's nothing like the little boy who used to follow me around, tugging on my pigtails. I kept my head down, unaware that our current posture looked rather intimate, as if we were embracing each other. I also didn't notice his ears turning red. Hey, you really don't like Xian anymore? The voice came from above me, and I froze, straightening up and pushing him away. Of course not. Once I've said something, there's no taking it back. He smiled, his eyes narrowing into slits. and ruffled my hair. Good girl. I'm leaving. Me? Who gave you permission to touch my head? You dog. I watched his cheerful back, thinking this guy was getting more and more unpredictable as he grew up. Humph, the men around me are so strange. Since I'm already 15 years old and haven't been betrothed yet, and my past achievements are too dazzling, nobles either worry that the third prince will object or that I'm too wild. So for now, the only suitors coming to propose are third or fourth rank civil officials. Marrying me is probably just to curry favor with my father and climb the social ladder, nothing more. Even the talented and arrogant young men with real talent weren't willing to propose. This made Chancellor Chen so angry that he blew his beard and glared at them, cursing them for having no taste. There were a few second or third rank officials, but they were all illegitimate sons, and my father would never agree to marry me off to them. Such families have complicated relationships, uncertain futures, and rely on the main branch for support. He said he'd rather keep me by his side for the rest of his life than marry me off to such a family. I looked at him, hugged his arm, and pouted, saying I didn't want to marry at all. He calmed down for a moment, but that day I saw him go to the ancestral hall to visit my mother's spirit tablet again. Every time he felt he hadn't treated me well enough or had wronged me, he would go and talk to my mother's spirit tablet. In my previous life, before I married the third prince, he stayed there for several days. Just a few nights. And when he came out, his temples were already gray. Seeing him like this again, my eyes stung with tears. Even in this life, I'm still so unfilial, causing him such worry. Lately, with the weather warming up, I've been taking Xiao Qin, Xiao Qi, Xiao Shu, and Xiao Hua out to play in shifts, occasionally bringing Xiao Zhou along too. We find a scenic spot, spread out a small silk mat, eat some pastries, drink hot tea, and the day passes by. Of course, I have my own motives. If I come across someone who catches my eye, I'll get to know them a bit. If they seem like a good person, I'd like to marry them off, giving my father something to do. Perfect. Zi Jean. A sweet female voice rang out. I turned around. Oh. Su Xianer. No. Zhou Xianer. She wore a sky-blue long dress that flowed gracefully, with a blue jade hairpin of exceptional quality holding her long hair, making her even more beautiful. Right beside her, oh, Prince Xian, the third prince, Prince Xiaoziu, the fifth prince, and Zhou Yao, along with several unfamiliar noble women. Oh no. This is bad. Zi Jean. It's been ages. I've been looking for you. But you were always sick. Are you feeling better now? I looked at the lively young girl in front of me, then glanced at Xian's tender gaze toward her, and smiled. I'm fine. I just came out for some fresh air. Sure enough, they're together again. Sigh, although Zhou Xianer is pretty cute. I really don't want to see Xian again. And I don't want to meet Zhou Yao either. I heard that my younger sister is currently being matched with someone. Good news is coming. But why haven't I heard anything yet? Zhou Yao smiled, looking at me with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Xian's eyebrows wrinkled slightly, but it was fleeting. Xiaoziu opened his folding fan with a snap and looked at me with a sarcastic tone. Zi Jin is charming and lovely, and Minister Chen is a pillar of the state. She is not someone an ordinary person can match. You must treat her well. I looked at the fifth prince's expression and felt that he and Zhou Yao were truly a perfect match. Both equally annoying. Zhou Xianer frowned and stood up, saying, Sister, how can a young lady discuss marriage matters in public like this? Marriage is decided by the parents and arranged by matchmakers. Moreover, the fifth prince is a royal prince. Making jokes about such matters is not the behavior of a gentleman. Xiaoziu's expression turned cold instantly. He stepped forward and confronted Zhou Xian'er. Are you lecturing me? Xian maintained his smile. Seeing Xia Ziyu step forward, he also stepped forward, standing in front of Zhou Xian'er, and said to Xia Ziyu, fifth brother, are you already angry? Why bother? Watching this scene unfold before me, I felt a pang of discomfort. I didn't miss Xia An's displeasure. I knew he didn't dislike me and might even like me a little. But he would never stand up for me like this. Standing in front of me. From the perspective of an onlooker, I suddenly understood everything and let go completely. In this life and the next, let love and hate be buried forever. I brushed non-existent dust off my skirt, stood up, and took a small bite of the pastry in my hand while watching the show. The fifth prince noticed my gaze and said irritably, Miss Qin, is it nice? Among all the noble women in Yanjing, you're the only one who can't be married off. Aren't you? Humph. Who said I can't be married off? Turning my head, I saw Sun Chongfan walking over. His hair was loosely tied with a blue silk ribbon, and he wore a blue robe embroidered with silver threads. His gaze was intense. He held a birdcage in his hand. His peach-shaped eyes sparkled with passion, and the corners of his mouth curved upward, revealing a dimple, exuding elegance and charm, dazzling in the light. Xia Ziyu looked at him in astonishment and sneered. What are you talking about? Even if Chen Zixiang were to marry off Chen Zijing, he wouldn't give her to you. The most debauched man in Yanjing. Sun Chongfan handed the birdcage to me, ruffled my hair, then stood in front of me and said, What? You can't give her to him. You're no match for me in eating, drinking, gambling, or womanizing. Pfft. Xia Ziyu was stunned. Who compares like that? He's a prince. Yet he's competing with Sun Chongfan over who's better at eating, drinking, gambling, and womanizing? He might as well give up the throne and go to bed. Tomorrow, the imperial censors' reports will be flying everywhere. Damn it! He was so angry that his face turned red, but he couldn't think of a way to refute it. Any response would be too embarrassing. So he stormed off. Zhou Yao followed closely behind, glaring at me as she left. But Sun Chongfan looked back at her expressionlessly, and she immediately backed down. The other noble women dispersed. Xia An looked at me, and Sun Chongfan took a small step forward to block his view. He smiled, while Zhou Xian'er gave me a mischievous wink and said she'd come find me next time before running off. Xia An followed Zhou Xian'er. In an instant, only Sun Chongfan and I were left. Young Marquis? Come on. Explain yourself. What do you plan to do? Sun Chongfan, who had just been so confident, immediately backed down upon hearing my words. He turned around, scratching his head, and said, I hope this doesn't reach the Prime Minister's ears. He. I looked at his nervous smile and said with a smile, I bet it'll reach him in less than an hour. His face turned pale, and he asked timidly, Or I'll marry you. Is that okay? Looking at his cowardly expression, it reminded me of when he was a child and had done something wrong, afraid of being punished by my father, pleading for my protection with a terrified expression. The two faces merged together, softening my heart. I patted his head and said, All right, as long as my father agrees. Anyway, it's better to marry someone I know well than to marry a stranger. Plus, with my father around, he wouldn't dare cause trouble. He scratched his head, smiled, and hurried back to the Prime Minister's mansion after sending me home, saying he needed to prepare the dowry. I nodded and went back. I didn't notice that his face, which had been filled with worry, suddenly lit up with joy. His eyes sparkled with brilliance. Since leaving the house hadn't gone well, I stayed home all morning. As soon as my father returned from court, He rushed into my room and asked me what had happened that morning. I rounded it off and only mentioned that Sun Chongfan had come to propose marriage, which made him so angry his eyebrows almost stood on end. That little brat dares to come here. I'll beat him to death. Then, a servant came to report that the young marquis had come to propose marriage. Before the proposal, they had beaten drums and gongs while carrying the dowry and paraded it around the entire capital. The old marquis and Sun Chongfan had already arrived. I heard that although the old marquis looked stern, his eyes were red, probably because he never thought he'd live to see his son get married. My father and I were stunned. How could this happen so quickly? Even if the marquis agreed, the matchmaker would need at least 3 or 5 days to prepare the dowry. Qin, the chancellor, angrily told me to sit down and not go, then rushed to the front hall to prepare for a fight. How could I not go? I sneaked after him. When I arrived, they had already been talking for a while. At that moment, Sun Chongfan was kneeling on the ground, looking at my father earnestly and saying, "I have loved Si Jin since I was a child. If my master agrees, I swear that I will only marry Si Jin as my one and only wife, love and protect her for the rest of my life. If I break this promise, may the heavens strike me down and may I die a miserable death." It was the first time I had ever seen him look so serious, and my heart skipped a beat. The young man acted well, and I almost believed him. Seeing my father's hesitation, the Marquis's mansion's steward immediately began to list the betrothal gifts. Although the Marquis's mansion was no longer involved in court affairs, it still had considerable assets, and this time, they might empty the house. The long list was filled with rare clothing, food, medicine, and jewelry, a total of 98 carriages. The Empress's dowry list only had 99 carriages, let alone the rare treasures inside. It made me wonder if he had been preparing for this for a long time. I feel like I've been tricked. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation and returned to my room in a daze. In my previous life, I didn't have much interaction with Sun Chongfan. Later, he began to support Xian, and our relationship deteriorated. We weren't even on speaking terms, and every time he saw me, he would glare at me fiercely. How did things turn out this way in this life? Another hour passed, and my father cautiously entered the room, sipped his tea, and chose his words carefully. Looking at him, I smiled and asked, "Did you agree?" Qin, the chancellor, looked at his daughter's smiling face and said hesitantly, "Well, my daughter, if you don't like it, you can always refuse. But you know, with the princes vying for the throne and the young marquis being a bit reckless, he's still a decent person and hasn't taken sides. Marrying into his family would be safer for you and won't involve you in too much trouble. And don't let his playboy appearance fool you. He knows what he's doing and hasn't caused any trouble. If he ever dares to mistreat you, I'll definitely go beat him up." I watched my father's worried expression as he talked on and on, sometimes frowning, sometimes glancing at me cautiously, and sometimes getting angry. I walked up and hugged him. Qin, the chancellor, was startled, feeling the dampness on his neck. He said tenderly, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Oh, my little one. Don't cry. Don't marry him. I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Is that okay?" I snorted. I wiped away my tears, looked up at my father's worried face, and let him wipe my tears. I shook my head and said, "I'll marry. I'm not very smart, and I always get into trouble, but I have the best father in the world. I'm so lucky." Qin, the prime minister, was so moved by her words that his heart melted. He sighed, realizing that his daughter had grown up. His eyes were red, but he was too embarrassed to cry. He nodded and gently patted his daughter's head, saying, "Who said that? My little Tuanchuan is the smartest. Then, afraid of crying in front of his daughter, he stood up and said he had to go. He turned around and entered the ancestral hall to share the news with his wife. I watched my father's disappearing figure and smiled. Though I didn't know how I had been reborn, it was truly wonderful. Behind the screen, a figure stood quietly, a small dimple appearing on her cheek. To be honest, I've done it again. After breaking off my engagement to the third prince, I married the most debauched young marquis in Yanjing. I skillfully rejected all invitations. After exchanging tokens with the marquis's mansion, everything went smoothly. Our horoscopes were compatible, and the date was set for the 15th of next month. Only 30 days left? The emperor was persuaded by my father, who said he was worried I would be mistreated, and reluctantly granted me the title of Princess of Anning. I don't have many friends. When the princess came to give me a gift, I wondered if I had thought it through. I nodded, and she looked at me with a complicated expression, tugging at the corner of her mouth. On my way out, I bumped into Zhou Xianer. The two of us exchanged a glance, and it was a disaster. This familiar scene made me pause suddenly. So, Kuning like Xian? Kuning is the given name of the princess who is to be married to me. I haven't called her that in a long time. But Kuning is already engaged to my older brother. Scenes from my previous life echoed in my mind. It was she who told me about Xian's preferences and schedule when I was most lonely. After she married my older brother, she often came to listen to me pour out my heart and give me advice. Xiao Zhou carried out the order. I knew it. Why were all his preferences so odd? Why did the castor oil I gave Zhou Xianer turn into arsenic? Why did every little quarrel turn into a life or death matter? I thought Zhou Xianer was deliberately making things worse to make Xian despise me. But it turns out that's exactly what she did. Everything suddenly came to light. And I laughed. How could I have been so stupid? So blind? Jean? Zhou Xianer's soft voice rang out, and I looked at her worried face. She hesitated for a moment, bit her lip, and said resolutely, Jean, I know you and the Princess of Linqin have been friends since childhood. But, you don't have to take her words too seriously. Just do what you think is right. Okay? Seeing Zhou Xianer carefully reminding me out of consideration for my feelings, I felt I owed her an apology. I'm sorry. Zhou Xianer, huh? Zhou Xianer opened her big eyes and smiled, her tear tattoo sparkling, looking very happy. I should be thanking you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to reunite with my family so smoothly. Let's get along well from now on. The last sentence was something she had said in her previous life. But at the time, I had bumped into her and left. This time, I nodded sincerely and sighed. She's really beautiful. When I returned the small boat to the Princess of Linqin, her alluring face froze for a moment. What does that mean? What did Zhou Xianer tell you? Do you believe her and not me? I looked at her and asked only one question. How long have you been infatuated with the third prince? She paused, and I stared into her eyes seriously. If you say no, I'll believe you. This time, she was completely speechless, sitting dejectedly on the chair. I returned the crimson jade pendant I had always worn on my body to her. She had given it to me when she was 10 years old, and we each had one. They were made from the same piece of jade, and I had kept mine close to my body all this time. She looked at the jade pendant but said nothing. I walked down the street, with Xiao Qin and Xiao Hua following me, neither of us speaking. The courtyards on both sides were filled with trees, and the sunlight was just right, with flowers in full bloom. My gloomy mood lifted slightly, and suddenly I heard a familiar voice. HM? I turned to look in the direction of the voice and saw a familiar figure shouting loudly. Big! Big! I raised my eyebrows and looked at the signboard, Rui Gambling House. At that moment, The servant beside him saw me and started pushing him. "Hey, what's the matter?" "I'm having fun," he said, glancing back casually. I smiled at him. Sun Chongfan froze for a moment, hesitated, then grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the gambling house. "Me, what are you doing?" He turned his head and grinned. "The law doesn't punish the many, if you play too. I won't get beaten." Although the gambling house didn't prohibit women from entering, I had always maintained a gentle and reserved persona in my previous life and had never been there before. It seemed pretty interesting. I was still a bit shy at first and didn't know what big or small meant, so I just guessed randomly. I guessed a few correctly, and my face turned red with excitement. This is really fun. After an hour. What was shyness? I'd never seen it before. I almost pulled up my sleeves and rushed to the table. Sun Chongfan looked at the woman's delicate face and was so excited he almost danced with joy, unable to help but laugh out loud. Fortunately, it was already very noisy here, and Qin Zijing didn't notice at all, her eyes fixed on the dice cup. Sun Chongfan had no interest in the dice cups, he could tell what numbers were inside just by listening. He was staring at his own hands, which were unconsciously tugging at his sleeves. Slender and delicate, with pink nails. The owner of the hands was smiling, her eyes sparkling as if filled with little stars. He couldn't help but think, "Thank goodness. She's easy to please. She doesn't seem too upset. I've finally discovered Sun Chongfan's good qualities. He's so amazing. He can tell how many there are without even looking at the sieve." I held the 500 tails-eyed one in my arms, feeling completely at ease. You're so ambitious. Isn't it heavy?" The man beside me hooked his lips into a smile, flicking his ponytail as he looked at me. "It's not heavy. I earned it with my own skills. It's not heavy at all." Sun Chongfan smiled so widely his eyes squinted, making his dimples even deeper. He ruffled my hair, and I chattered away about my day at the gambling house. He bought a sugar-coated hawthorn on a stick. Since I didn't have any hands, he fed it to me, occasionally taking a bite himself. Before I knew it, we had arrived at the mansion. Thanks to this little incident, the frustration in my heart had completely dissipated. I lingered outside the door, wanting to thank him but feeling a bit shy. What should I say? That I realized today I'm an idiot, lost a friend, and was in a bad mood. But luckily I met you at the gambling house. Then you took me out to play? Ah, that would make you so proud. He saw me standing there, smiled, tapped my forehead gently, and said, "Go inside. It's not that heavy." I hesitated for a moment, thought about it, and quickly said, "Thank you for today." Then I ran back to the mansion, my heart pounding wildly, so I didn't see him staring at my back, looking a little dazed. What goes around comes around. That night, while bathing, I noticed purple bruises on my arms. It's embarrassing, I must have gotten them from holding the silver all the way back. They'll definitely hurt tomorrow. Sigh. I exhaled deeply, stepped out of the bathtub, and after Xiao Shu dried my hair, I drank some milk, put on a small belly cloth, and slipped into a silk trousers to sleep. I must have been too excited, I fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. When the man entered, he saw Qin Zijing lying on the bed, sprawled out in all directions, snoring softly. He smiled, staring at the woman on the bed. The blanket was draped over her stomach, her white, tender shoulders exposed. The sight beneath the belly band was enough to make one's heart race. He closed his eyes, suppressing the desire burning within him. "Little vixen," he muttered under his breath, then gently applied the ointment to the bruised areas on Qin Zijing's arms. The soft, tender sensation under his fingers made his eyes darken further, looking at her slightly puckered pink lips. He resisted again and again, finally just gently touching them with his index finger. Qin Zijing murmured, turning over, and the man smiled as he tucked the blanket around her. Anyway, it's not even a month yet, I'll be able to have her soon. As expected, my father found out about my visit to the gambling house. Looking at the furious man in front of me, I received the latest bracelet from Baozanju. My father believed that Sun Chongfan had taken me to the gambling house, which would surely terrify my young mind with its chaotic and corrupt environment. So he gave me this as a consolation. I nodded wildly and praised his keen insight, betraying Sun Chongfan and harshly condemning him for dragging me to the gambling house. So, when he came to visit again, my father beat him with a bamboo rod until he ran out of the house, and I laughed until tears came to my eyes. Days passed, and my father hired a former palace maid to teach me etiquette. I quietly embroidered my wedding veil, and my eldest brother returned home after a long journey. He had left home at a young age and spent years on the battlefield, so he had a cold, icy demeanor, and we weren't very close, though he did spoil me. In my previous life, when my father was at the execution ground, he was rushing back, and I died before I could see him one last time. He looked me over from head to toe, as if he wanted to touch my head but was afraid of scaring me, so he seemed a bit awkward. I went up to hug him and said, "Brother, welcome home." His body stiffened. He patted my head and said with emotion, "You've grown up." Then he turned around and went to fight with Sun Chongfan with a fierce expression, thinking about how his little sister had finally agreed to be close to him only to be kidnapped. He felt utterly betrayed, watching my older brother's departing figure. I smiled and couldn't help but sigh again. Being able to come back to life is truly wonderful. I can make up for all the regrets. Thinking about how Sun Chongfan was being chased all over the place by my older brother, I felt infinitely satisfied. I had no idea that the outcome of the duel was my older brother being held at gunpoint by a red-plumed spear. When my older brother returned and spoke with our father in the study, I assumed it was about court matters. But a few days later, news came that my older brother's engagement to the Princess of Linqin had been annulled. A few days later, news came that the Princess of Linqin had gone to a temple to shave her head and take vows. I jumped up to go find her, but suddenly thought, why should I go find her? Xiao Shu and Xiao Qin looked at me worriedly as I slowly sat back down. They only knew that I had fallen out with the princess, but they didn't know what had happened. I didn't plan to tell anyone either. To be honest, when I heard the news, I wasn't happy at all. How many people would return after shaving their heads and entering a monastery? Why did she do that? Was it because she was rejected in marriage? To be honest, I don't hate her. It's not because I'm a saint who believes in repaying kindness with kindness. It's because I know that even without her, I would have become the same person in my previous life. Jealousy has already corrupted me beyond recognition. I would go to any lengths to frame Zhou Xin'er, but hearing that she had gone to the temple didn't make me happy either. She's only 17 years old. I still want us all to have a happy ending. On the day of the wedding, I didn't go. I'd been lying in bed for 10 straight days, only getting up to use the restroom, and even eating in bed. I felt like I couldn't muster the energy to do anything. My father and older brother had some idea why, so they came to check on me every day, bringing me some good food. There were only 20 days left until my wedding. On this particular day, for some reason, Xiao Shu and Xiao Qi forced me to take a bath and wash up, then changed my clothes. I didn't understand why, so I dragged myself back to bed. I remember the pigs on the farm looked just like you, eating and sleeping in their pens. Hearing that lazy voice, I looked over. The man was swaying his small braid, leaning against the door with a smile on his lips, his dimples making me want to poke them. "What are you doing here? We're not supposed to see each other before the wedding." I glanced at him and continued lying there. That's 3 days before the wedding. And this is way too early. I rolled my eyes and didn't comment. Ah. This devilish thing picked me up by the waist. And I was so scared I clung to his neck. Completely bewildered. While Xiao Shu and Xiao Qi slipped away. Damn it. I'm going to sell them both. He looked at me, startled, and laughed softly, leaning in close. After we get married, there will be plenty of days when you can't get out of bed. I immediately went on high alert. What does that mean? Are you planning to abuse me after we get married? Dare to touch me, and my father will beat you to death. Thinking of this, I clenched my teeth and said angrily, who knows who won't be able to get out of bed? Humph. He paused, then laughed even harder and said, then I'll have something to look forward to. Me, what the hell? Is this guy mentally unstable? From that day on, I decided to eat well and exercise more, preparing to beat Sun Chongfan senseless on our wedding day. Sun Chongfan watched me run around the courtyard, teasing me every now and then. He'd say I was slow. Then he'd say my legs were short, making me so angry I grabbed him and beat him up. But every time he got hit, he looked like he was having the time of his life, his dimples smiling at me, tempting me to hit him again. I did, and I started to worry if I'd hit him too hard and damaged his brain. With him around to lighten the mood, time flew by, and before I knew it, the wedding day arrived. That day, I was dragged out of bed before dawn to get dressed and made up. The hair pulling was so painful I was grimacing and screaming in agony. The red shoe brocade bestowed by the palace was embroidered with large lotus flowers in gold thread, colored with various silk threads, and finally draped with a layer of pale red sea dragon gauze. The gauze was thin and delicate, embroidered with extremely fine silver threads, creating a faintly visible pattern that shimmered brilliantly in the sunlight. I stared at myself in the mirror in awe. I had never seen myself look so beautiful. The woman in the mirror had rosy cheeks and a seductive gaze. She was truly a beauty who could captivate a city. Oh my, the bride is so beautiful. The girl helping me with my makeup laughed. I held her hand and said, no, sister, it's your makeup skills that are amazing. Now I believe that this woman, who looks no older than 18, is actually 40 years old. As I put on the veil, my brother carried me to the wedding palanquin, whispering softly as he walked, if he bullies you, tell me. We'll just go home, and I'll take care of you. My eyes stung with tears. In my previous life, I hadn't been very close to my brother. I had always felt he was too cold. So on our wedding day, he carried me in silence, not saying a word. Unlike now, chattering away like an old man. I hugged his neck and said, brother, you should hurry up and get yourself a wife too. You're always teasing me. He smiled, and I almost lifted the veil. I've never heard you laugh out loud before. Ah. We boarded the wedding palanquin, with trumpets blaring all the way. Sun Chongfan rode a horse, occasionally tossing wedding money down to the crowd below, who scrambled to catch it, creating a lively scene. I sat inside, listening to the laughter outside, and my lips curled into a smile without me realizing it. After the wedding ceremony, the guests laughed and joked. The veil was lifted, and Sun Chongfan, dressed in his wedding attire, had his usually loosely tied hair neatly combed back. He was looking at me with sparkling eyes. I didn't notice before, but he's actually quite handsome. Suddenly, my gaze shifted involuntarily. Xian was looking at me, a fleeting look of astonishment in his eyes. I glanced at him, but felt nothing. Zhou Xianer stood beside him, her eyes red as she looked at me, as if she were about to cry. I didn't cry. Suddenly, everything turned red, and the veil was lowered. I heard a man's voice whispering in my ear, You dare to look at someone else in front of me? You'll be in big trouble later. I smiled. This guy was jealous? He was acting so serious. Back in the room, I lifted the veil. I hadn't eaten all day and was starving. Just as I was about to sneak a bite of the pastry in my sleeve, I heard someone outside say, "Hey, young master son. Why are you leaving so soon? Have another drink. Sun Changfan, go drink by yourself. It's not easy for me to marry a wife. Get lost." Me? Sun Changfan opened the door and rushed to the bedside, took a deep breath, sat down, and lifted my veil. I swallowed the pastry with effort. Sun Changfan looked at me and smiled helplessly. Come on. Let's drink the cup of wine together. Don't choke. I leaned in to drink. But Xiao Qin, Xiao Qi, Xiao Shu, and Xiao Hua all slipped away while I was drinking. When I finished and looked up, there were only Sun Changfan and me, staring at each other. Huh? Where did they go? I haven't eaten yet. Sun Changfan looked at my flushed face from drinking and asked suspiciously. Minister. Cough. Cough. Father-in-law. Or mother-in-law. Didn't they give you a little notebook? I frowned and thought for a moment. It seemed like they had given me one. But in my previous life, I accidentally spilled tea on it. And the ink was smudged. I could vaguely make out two people wrestling. Because I framed Zhou Xin'er and was discovered. I didn't even see Xian on our wedding day. And after that, I never saw him again. Being able to eat a meal together was already a luxury. This life's notebook was similar to the previous one. So I didn't bother looking at it. I was busy reading a novel and forgot about it. When he asked, I replied innocently. The notebook with the two people fighting? I already read it. What's the matter? Sun Changfan was taken aback by my words. After a few seconds, he shook his head and smiled. There's just no helping you. I was confused. Do you have to learn martial arts just to get married? That's too hard. Sun Changfan looked up at me, his eyes sparkling with a light I couldn't understand. His voice hoarse. It's okay. Who told me to be patient? I can teach you slowly. I frowned unhappily. Do I really have to learn? Can't I just not learn? Sun Changfan sat directly on top of me, laying me down on the bed, and touched my face. You have to learn. I felt a bit hot and unconsciously pulled at my collar, but saw that his expression had grown even more serious. His gaze deep and eerie. Sun Changfan slowly leaned down, his face just an inch away from mine, grabbing my hand and saying, Tuan? My face turned bright red instantly. Don't call me that. I pushed him away. This was way too close, and I felt inexplicably anxious. Tuan. His voice grew hoarse. Then, a pair of hands began to roam over my body. I shifted uncomfortably. Hey, why are you taking off my clothes? Hey, where are you putting your hands? Hey. It hurts. It hurts. Remaining content loading. Tuan, time to get up. I heard the voice by my ear, frowned, and rolled over. I felt someone's hands moving around on my body again, so I had to open my eyes and grab the hand, pouting and saying, I'm not learning anymore. I've been learning all night. It hurts so much. My whole body ached, and I looked at the bruises on my body. This wasn't martial arts at all. I'd been tricked. I wanted to go back and ask my dad or older brother, but I felt too embarrassed to say anything. How could this be? Sun Changfan, that bastard, tricked me into practicing martial arts and now I'm coughing up blood. Sun Changfan was getting closer and closer, whispering in my ear, I've waited so long. And this is all you've got? I grabbed his hand and struggled. When did he get so strong? I remember when I was a kid. I could knock him out with one punch. In the end, I failed to escape and was dragged back for another round of training. I'm so done. Looking at the swaying bed curtains, I felt like I might end up dying from martial arts training. This is too much. Marriage is like this? On my wedding night, I felt the weight of it all. And after spending a month in the same bed with Sun Chongfan, I decided to hide out at the temple for a few days. No. Going to the temple to pray for the peace of the court and the well-being of the people is inappropriate. I'll go for happiness. And maybe visit an old friend. The princes vying for the throne thought, we're fighting tooth and nail for the throne. And you're talking to me about happiness? In any case, amidst Sun Chongfan's sorrowful expression, I cheerfully packed my belongings and took Xiao Qin, Xiao Qi, Xiao Shu, and Xiao Hua with me to Lianxing Temple. Lianxing Temple was the first sacred temple of the Great Yan dynasty. Legend had it that the first abbot was born without parents, nurtured by the lotus pond on the back mountain, emerging from the mud yet untainted, washed by clear water yet not seductive. With a gentle and upright temperament, 100 years later, his soul did not go to the Pure Land but remained in the temple, helping those with karmic connections. If anyone is fortunate enough to see him, he will grant them a wish. It is said that the founder of the Great Yan dynasty, Emperor Yan Wendi, encountered the first abbot when the temple was still a dilapidated hut and vowed to save the world, thus becoming the true dragon emperor. When I was a child, I always thought this was a ghost story. Imagine this, on a moonless night with howling winds. The shadows of trees dance in the darkness. You are alone in a dilapidated temple deep in the mountains, resting, when suddenly an unknown spirit appears, chuckling. I can grant you one wish. I ask you, wouldn't you be scared? If it were me, I might just turn into a spirit myself. After 2 hours of bumpy travel, I finally arrived. Looking up at the tall stone steps, my legs trembled. By the time I climbed up, I was half dead. If I fell down, I'd probably be dead for sure. As soon as I reached the door, a young monk with red lips and white teeth came to greet me. He looked to be only 10 or so years old. But despite his young age, he exuded a sense of peace and harmony. After leading me to the guest room door, he bowed to me. I returned the bow and patted his head. The young monk was speechless. I couldn't help myself. The atmosphere became a bit awkward. I was overwhelmed by the sudden maternal instinct. So I took out a small bag containing some candied fruit I had bought, which I hadn't eaten yet. Would you like some? The young monk looked at the candied fruit in my hand, and the serene aura gradually faded. A mysterious gleam appeared at the corner of his mouth. Thank you, benefactor. But that's not right. He stared at the candied fruit, stammering. I raised my eyebrows and stuffed it into his arms. Take it. But this monk, I'll accept it first. He snatched it and ran off happily. I watched his retreating figure, the corners of my mouth curling slightly. This little monk is called Tingzhu. In my previous life, I was locked up in the temple, and he was the one who brought me food. Actually, the people in the temple didn't treat me badly. It was just that I spent every day wallowing in self-pity and blaming the heavens, driving away everyone who came to bring me food, watching them leave in anger. I always felt a sense of satisfaction, as if I had driven someone to their death, which made me happy. But I never expected that later they would assign me a little brat, and I lost all interest. Yet I couldn't bear the humiliation of being confined to the temple. So I hid in a corner and cried like a madwoman. He saw me crying all the time and not eating. So he gave me some candied fruit and told me that when his father died, he used to cry all the time too. Every time he cried, his mother would give him some candied fruit. And after eating it, he wouldn't miss his father as much. I wanted to laugh sarcastically, thinking that such a little kid was telling me this. How could he possibly understand my suffering? I'm sorry. I was so narrow-minded back then. I really thought I was the unluckiest person in the world. And I didn't know that he had to save up for 3 months to buy a small packet of candied fruit. So I threw the candied fruit away and pushed him out the door along with it. But I was still so angry. I turned around to scold him, but saw that he had picked up the candied fruit from the ground, patted it off, and put it in his mouth. Put it in his mouth. To be honest, even though I felt like the unluckiest person in the world at the time, I wasn't so desperate that I would pick up candied fruit off the ground to eat. Even though I was under house arrest, I had plenty to eat and drink. This scene really shook my worldview of living in luxury. The next day, I gave him a big bag of candied fruit. His single eyelid was trembling with joy. His eyes red with excitement as he looked at me, then ran off, holding the food I had given him. Later, he became my target for bullying, trembling as he took me around the temple. I realized that not everyone wore fine clothes. I also realized that the clothes in the temple, which I had thought were deliberately made to look shabby, weren't actually that bad. They were quite decent for ordinary people. I learned that the rice in the temple was coarse rice mixed with some unnamed, throat-scratching ingredients. I also realized that Joe Shinner was right when he said I was wasteful and didn't understand the hardships of the common people. I learned that some people couldn't even afford a single tael of silver for medicine and had to come to the temple for help. That year, I saw many things I hadn't seen or even known about in the previous 20 years. Unfortunately, there was no later. As soon as I stepped outside, I was taken directly to the execution ground, where I disarmed the executioner and killed myself. Otherwise, I might have quietly divorced Xian and had my father, who had taken the blame for me, released. Although my father's death was partly because of this, it was also because he believed that killing my father would make the emperor think he had no intention of usurping the throne. It's just very complicated. Plus, he hated me so much at the time that he couldn't hide his disgust when he looked at me. If it weren't for some unknown reason, he might have really killed me. Life in the temple was always so simple and monotonous. I finally couldn't help but sneak a glance at Kuning. All right. I'm sorry, Xiao Tingzhu. You were just there by accident. I was looking at Kuning. As the saying goes, I feel very complicated. After more than a decade of emotions, she's no longer just a friend to me, she's more like family. I have no sisters, so we always whispered secrets to each other. She's always let me have my way and spoiled me like an older sister. I don't believe any of that was fake. Peering over the wall, I watched her in her plain robes, kneeling before the Buddha's shrine and reciting sutras. Then quietly pulled my head back, because I simply couldn't reconcile the image of the once seductive woman with the one inside, who seemed to desire nothing. I might owe her a lot, but I hope we never see each other again. Yet, I also miss her old self a little. Though I'm not the brightest, I'm not stupid either. Sun Chongfan and my brother just met, and my brother immediately called off the engagement. There's no way there's nothing going on between them. I'd rather die than believe it. But how could Sun Chongfan know? I can only say that he has been secretly watching me for a long time, including the people around me. Although he pretends to be a useless dog every day, I know what he does when he sneaks out at night. But I just don't ask. Otherwise, with the old marquis' achievements overshadowing the emperor and his son being a prince, the emperor might not be able to sit still. The Xie family is all the same, even though the emperor and my father have such a good relationship. As soon as there's a hint of suspicion, they go with the flow and kill without hesitation. After issuing the decree, they put on a show of deep sorrow and unbearable pain. I lay on the soft chair, staring blankly at the candlelight. In my previous life, Sun Chongfan sided with Xian and got involved in court politics. Was it because of me? Then I rushed forward to grab the knife, but accidentally pulled it out and stabbed myself. Thinking of him, With his carefree and fearless demeanor as a second son, I felt both happy and sad for him. I must have caused him a lot of pain in my previous life. Thinking of this, I realized that I had already fallen so deeply in love with him. Hey, you've only been gone for 3 days and you're already missing me so much you want to cry? A familiar voice startled me. Looking at the man rushing to wipe away my tears, I couldn't help but hug him and say, I love you so much. Why are you always there whenever I need you? Sun Chongfan froze upon hearing the confession, his mind going blank. He had always believed that Chen Zijing had married him out of convenience. So she felt the same way as him? His hands tightened unconsciously as he held the little person in his arms, whispering in a voice she couldn't hear, me too. In this life and the next. The end.